Hey Neeraj, how are you doing? Actually, thanks for joining me on a quick notice. I wanted to test this Restream.io with guest capability, and thank you. How was your week?
Week was good. Glad to join you. Really glad to be part of this. I'm getting a hang of these streamings. I got a chance to do one last night, and
Hmm.
excited to be here. Week's been awesome. Spoke with some very interesting people that range from venture capitals, venture VCs, to designers, to product. Lots of interesting conversations this week.
Yeah. You told me earlier. I think like last week that you are up to something big, and we will announce it when we announce it. I guess, right?
That's right.
Cool. So yeah, my week was interesting too. Doing some work with this company in San Diego, and then bunch of social media stuff and preparing for some other stuff, which I think we spoke earlier. So
Mhm.
thanks for joining me on quick notice. What else is happening on the family side? How are the kids doing?
The kids are doing great. The wife's gotten them down to a particular rhythm. It's more predictable for them. Kids are much more resilient than we actually give them credit for.
Yeah, true.
It is hilarious. I was mentioning to somebody else yesterday that when you have a 3-year-old who wakes up in the morning, sees the time, and says, "Oh, it's time for my meeting," it's really funny to actually watch a 3-year-old take a meeting on iPad thanks to Zoom US and his daycare.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, actually, my kids are home too. Actually, the one is was already after the university home, but the one high schooler is home, and I see them. Like I see her working like seldomly studying, and which makes me worried a little bit. Like, are you really studying, or what's happening? Like no homework. And I saw her doing PE, and recording it and sending it to the PE teacher. Interesting times. So yeah, I think. Anything else you want to talk about right now while we are testing this?
Yeah, sure. Actually, this past week, given so many different variety of conversations I've had, and I know you do this you do this every week. What is one conversation or one thought that has stuck with you that it's a key learning for you for this week?
Oh, that's interesting one. I think the one thing today we were talking with Mark and a bunch of folks was the platforms versus application kind of discussion. We were talking about no code, low code, right? So there was a lot of need for SaaS applications in this kind of environment, especially for communication and like working from home and that kind of stuff, right? So some people ask, like, I was saying that these no code, low code platforms need to have like inbound and outbound APIs, API first kind of development they need to do. We always have this hard time understanding in startup world, especially that how come the big guys are beating all these small guys, and they get to eat all the sort of big piece of the pie, if you will. um, they are big for a reason. Number one. Number two is they have advantage boots on the ground and all that stuff. Besides everything else, they have figured out that the platform, they are the platform companies, right? They don't they don't act like an application company. Most of them, meta platforms, I call them. So I think the smaller players need to be like that, because any productivity apps, they need to be able to talk to other existing systems. As we know that we cannot shed older systems that easily. If you are used to using Microsoft Office, you will keep using that for, like, it's not easy to switch to Google Docs for most people, right? For high tech, very highly technical people, it's maybe easier to change, but for masses, for teachers, for admins, it's like nightmare almost. Like they don't know how to where to click and all that, so they get used to it. So that, I think that was one thing actually I thought about doing a live session on, or record some stuff on it and then give my 2 cents.
No, that's interesting. Yeah, I agree. I mean, in the interoperability, extensibility doesn't get discussed too much. However, there is another school of thought around it, and that is as a startup, particularly as a startup, you set out to solve one or two use cases. You called it an app. I call it as a product, if you will. And you have to nail those down really, really well.
Yeah.
You can't set out as being a platform. The premise of, at least from the way I'm looking at defining that, is like one or two use cases really well, your product. Multiple use cases solved relatively well makes you a platform. Large companies have an advantage. They can take the approach of spray and pray. Startups do not have that capability. They have to be very, very focused in doing what they need to do and to get really successful. I mean, Plaid, acquired by Visa, is an awesome example from a fintech space where somebody who actually thought of extensibility, interoperability, and spent a good amount of time to actually become the platform that a large behemoth meta platform, to use your term, was saying, okay, I can make it even bigger and extend myself to go to a larger reach. So we should see a lot of that. We used to talk about capabilities first, features first. It's kind of funny now, API first is actually going to become a paradigm for a lot of stuff, moving away from just the mobile first. The modality into integrating into other systems is going to come in really handy.
Yeah, actually, I think it works like magic, and only a few companies can sort of crack that nut, if you will. Like Domino's Pizza, right?
Yeah.
It's a perfect example. You can order Domino's Pizza from, I don't know, like 20 gaming consoles and from cameras and all sort of devices with wherever you have the screen. I think it's Domino's, if I'm not getting it wrong. It's one of the pizza companies, and they are valued. Their valuation is like a tech company valuation.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just, you don't have to be a tech company to sort of do better systems, if you will. Like Amazon was not a technology company, but out of necessity, they created AWS.
Yeah.
So you can, I think the platforms can be born from out of necessity sometimes.
I agree. Look, technology is an enabler.
Yeah.
The ability for you to be, so scaling is another thing that comes out of it. And anyone who's actually able to deploy and transform their business leveraging technology, and then can use technology to scale quickly, is going to be able to take a lot of, create a lot of value for the enterprise in terms of how they grow and where they take their own company. So,
Yeah.
wow. Interesting stuff, interesting times. And I think we will keep seeing a lot of consolidation also happen.
Yeah.
I'm watching some very interesting trends in the fintech. And I think all the traditional banks who were a bit afraid, or starting to get a bit afraid maybe 6 months ago, about all these new companies that are coming in, challenger banks, taking over the normal processes of banking and whatnot, despite all the regulatory stuff. And you're now watching those traditional banks looking at their coffers versus the ability or the viability of a startup to last or see this through, and looking at saying, okay, we might have some interesting deals for us to make and be able to acquire these technology initiatives and take some of the subscribers back to us.
Yeah, I think in down times, like there's always consolidation. Some weaker players will disappear. Maybe they don't have enough runway if they are private companies, or they shed the market, market share, stuff like that. Yeah, people gravitate towards stability during such times, and stability is with bigger vendors, I guess.
That's a good point. Hey, let's switch gears. You are usually the one asking all kinds of fun questions. Let me ask you a fun question.
Mm-hmm.
You are such a appliance device kind of a aficionado, junkie, I should call it.
A nerd. Just call me nerd. Tech junkie.
No. It's, how many microphones do you have in your home office? I have been curious to find the answer to that.
I don't know. I don't have exact count, but it's more than, I think, six to eight, maybe.
Wow.
I experimented with different ones. Like I started with the cheaper ones, and then get a little better, a little better. The one thing actually I can tell you, viewers, if there's anybody watching or they watch later, is that I think it's better to spend a little more money upfront.
Hmm.
So I learned that with the guitar, but I still repeated the same mistake with microphones. So if you have a better player instrument to play, it helps you play better. I mean, as much as you can afford, right? So easily, yeah, don't stretch. So yeah, it's. I think you need better tools. I mean, this is what you do all the time, and for most of us now, we will be working from home for some time. I always suggest a good microphone.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah, mine's on order. It'll come when it comes, thanks to Amazon Prime. But I can't wait to get on a decent microphone myself. One other question, Sarbjeet. A lot of people know a ton about you professionally, what you do, how much you do, such wide experience you have in the industry. What is one thing that people, when they Google Sarbjeet Johal, aren't going to find that you like to do?
I think I don't keep anything private much, but I don't know. I'm born and raised in a small village. Maybe they don't know that. So, a village away from the cities, and half an hour on bicycle to the nearest bus, and from there 2 hours to the college,
Yep.
5 hours every day, like round trip to the college. That kind of life I lived when I was there. So maybe they don't know about those kind of things.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
always fascinating. All right, one last question on this before we call it a shot, call the session close. What book are you reading now, or what was the last book you read, and what was one or two things that stuck out of the one you're reading now or the last one you read?
Man, you're asking me all these tough questions, and just from top of your head, and I'm not prepared. We were supposed to test this Restream.io,
Yes, we
not
are.
you asking me all these questions. Not fair, not fair. I mean, I'm like looking at those books, a stack of books over there. The big one I can see is Python. I'm not reading that, by the way. So
Okay.
that's a fat book. Uh, no, actually, the last good one I would say I read was what was that? Dare to Lead. I always mention that book. Yeah, it's pretty good. And Principles from Ray Dalio is a good one. It's a great book actually if you are a systems thinker. Somebody's there,
Well,
kids.
I'm actually going to leverage this
Oh,
for anyone who hasn't had a chance to see. This is the book
yeah, yeah, that
by
one.
Brené Brown, Dare to Lead. It
Yeah,
is
yeah.
anyone who's in leadership or has to take with all kinds of tough questions and whatnot, or budding leaders, leaders existing, great refresh. Brené Brown's Dare to Lead.
Yeah. And yeah, I love that kind of stuff, which makes you take that leap and show your vulnerability. That's the basic sort of gist behind the book. You know, just there's a sort of tagline, and I think chapter 2 or 3,
Yep.
embrace the suck. It's called embrace the suck. You will suck at things in the beginning, and just go for it.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool.
Next time, I'm going to ask you tons of questions. I have 4:30 with Doug from BC. I told him like I took call you and also pinged some people on Twitter. Like I want to test this. He said, okay, let's do it. I committed with him too. So I'm going to test run 2 is with Doug. Hopefully, we'll be live soon again
All
with
righty.
Doug.
Sounds good. Thank you, SJ, for inviting me for this. I really appreciate it. Have a great Friday and have a great weekend. I guess the days are so blurred, but have a good one.
Yes. Thanks, Neeraj. Nice
All
talking,
right.
man.
Take care.
Always. Bye. Ciao. Stop it.